Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. We're not a news outlet and we're not here to deliver political commentary. Instead, we want to step back and try to understand the things the way they are. This is Tabyin for all of us, and we're here for the battle of narratives. Assalamu alaikum to my dear audience, the respected viewers, Sayyid Ali with me and Sheikh Mustafa with me. Today's discussion is a very important and very relevant discussion. We want to talk about the ceasefire. Now I know, just like me, you have a lot of questions, a lot of thoughts, perhaps even a lot of emotions about this topic. But we want to go back and reflect upon this. Now, today is Thursday, the 9th of April. It's very difficult to say a lot of things because things are so up in the air. We're not sure about many things. There's a lot of information that we don't know about, definitely. But we can still go back and explain some of the very important foundations of what is ceasefire, what is the relevance of the ceasefire in today's war, and try to understand these things from an Islamic worldview. So, thank you very much. Let's begin this discussion. I want to first go back and look at the events that occurred in the last few days. A lot has happened. It's been a frantic few days. I'm sure you would agree. It's been crazy. We've been awake and sleeping and on our phones, kind of checking what's happening. We had a very emotional Wednesday night as well. Inshallah, we'll talk about that. But Sayyid Ali, let's quickly review the events of the current days, few days. I think we can start from what happened in Isfahan and then move all the way to what happened on Wednesday night.
Auzubillahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. About Isfahan, a lot of detail is still trickling. We don't exactly know what happened, but we can sort of, from what we have, we can patch up an understanding of what happened. So, the US was supposedly looking for the pilot, but it was at quite a distance from where Isfahan is, at least 300 kilometers away. So there was a rescue mission supposedly, and which rescued the fighter pilot, but the US lost a lot of aircrafts in that rescue mission.
The photos were there as well.
Yeah, of course. I mean, they even admitted it.
Yes.
They lost 2 C-130s, they lost, I think, 4 Little Birds, a couple of Black Hawks. This was after the F-15 and the A-10 that was shot. Yes. So this was all there, around 12 aircrafts they lost in total. So
it shows it was a big thing, basically.
Of course.
Perhaps more than just a rescue mission?
That's what I was coming to. So, and that's why I hinted at, that this Isfahan is at a distance from where the fighter jet was lost. So what's being said now, and it's very plausible, that was actually more than just a rescue mission. It was perhaps an attempt to infiltrate into the Isfahan nuclear facility and steal the enriched uranium that they claim is there, but it failed miserably. And because that failed miserably, and the US president was always quite embarrassed, and he had been giving ultimatums and deadlines, and then he was retreating on them, and he was being shamed for that. They even have a term for it. They say Trump taco, they say. Trump always chickens out.
Yes.
Trump always chickens out. So he was chickening out again and again. So then finally he gave an ultimatum that people thought that he will chicken out ultimately, but it was so big that...
This is Wednesday night.
This is Wednesday night.
So this is just a few days after the Isfahan defeat.
Exactly, 3 or 4 days after the Isfahan defeat. So he gives an ultimatum and says that I'm going to obliterate a civilization, I'm going to destroy you. People were hinting that perhaps they want to use nukes, whatever. Everything in Iran was fine. People were quite calm, and they weren't even expecting it. That even if you want to do it, go ahead and do it. We'll see what happens. So here everything was fine, but it was understood that eventually the US and Trump, they will chicken out once again. And this is why they eventually had to concede and accept Iran's 10-point proposal.
I'm going to stop you right there because this is very important. We'll come back to it. But I want to go back to the Isfahan event because I feel that the negotiation and the ceasefire is at the backdrop of this massive defeat of Isfahan, right? So, Shah Mustafa, they talk about the god of Tabas, right? And the same god of Tabas was there in the god of Isfahan. Can you tell us a bit more about the role of, because sometimes, even I sometimes feel like really that's such an amazing, we watch Hollywood movies, right? American forces coming in. What is this idea of the God of Tabas and the role of Allah in this massive defeat of?
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. So let me just give you a background. Just like what happened in Isfahan, the way Sayyid al-Ridha said, there was something that happened in Tabas, which is kind of a central location in Iran in terms of the map. And it's just it happened in the desert, whereby during the time of Jimmy Carter, they had sent some forces into Iran to come and salvage some of the hostages that were taken by the Iranian government.
This is 1980 something, right?
Yeah. It was
1980.
the start of the revolution. And they had sent several aircrafts, and surprisingly, just when they were about to begin their operation, the aircrafts, they crashed into one another. And there were huge explosions. There was kind of a sandstorm that happened, or some claim there was a sandstorm, or perhaps there was some technical error. Whatever the case, but there was a big explosion, and all of those planes, they exploded. In fact, they have pictures of one of the pilots still holding the steering wheel as he was stuck there, his body fully burnt. And this is the event of Tabas.
So you call this a miracle?
You see, this is a heavy term, miracle, but I would say it is a help of Allah.
Okay, so can we believe in the help of Allah? Like, definitely, right?
Definitely. The help of Allah comes in different ways.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be something supernatural.
Yeah.
It can follow the natural processes that exist.
It's definitely not the first time as well, and probably not the last time as well. I mean, during the war in Lebanon, for example, we've talked about the help of Allah a lot of times. And in the Quran it's there, and I think sometimes personally as well, right? The more we read, I mean, for us that we are able to interact with the media over here, we get more of these stories, right? Especially during the 8-year war between Iran and Iraq, for example, in the whole world. We read these stories of the Shuhada and all these, don't want to call them miracles, but the help of Allah is there. I think it's time for us to start believing in this, right? Start believing that, look, there is something that we call the help of Allah, the nusra of Allah, that from the ghaib, the angels come, the fear is installed in the hearts of the
These are
enemy.
in the Quran. The verses of Quran that say that the angels will come, they'll strike fear. The angels will come, they will precise angels that are precision strikers. There are certain angels that are precision musawwimin. They strike with precision, force. We believe in this as Muslims and as people who believe in God. And in fact, all the God-believing nations, they believe in certain help from Allah.
That as long as the believers are steadfast, as long as there is patience in us and we're working towards the haqq and fighting for the haqq, the help of Allah is there definitely. So
the fact that the Islamic Republic survives, not survives, it thrives, itself is a miracle and a help of Allah.
Definitely.
For 47 years, from the 8-year war to today, if you look at it in profane material terms, there's no comparison. I mean, it's not even 1 to 1,000. You compare everything.
With the sanctions that they
put.
With
the sanctions, everything,
I think on paper, calculation-wise, like Iran couldn't have survived.
Shouldn't have.
It shouldn't. Especially
but it's
they
thriving.
themselves say crippling sanctions. They mention it very clearly. But we don't see a crippling nation.
I think I like to interpret Shahid Rahbar's words when he says the enemy miscalculates. What does that mean? I use this kind of explanation to say, look, miscalculation means that on paper, we would have won this war in 2 days. You remove the leader, right? The Rahbar, you remove him, the top commanders. On paper, 2 to 3 days is done. Or for example, the protests that happened, that were foreign-based protests 2-3 months ago. Again, on paper, it looked very, like you would say, this is I think Rahbar himself at one point, well, not maybe this one, but the previous one said, like, if you look at it from an enemy material perspective, it's very amazing military strategy, right? But they miscalculate in this sense that they don't take into consideration the fact that the people are united, that they're steadfast, that they have patience, and because of all that, the help of Allah will come.
They don't have any divine considerations.
Exactly.
They look at it everything in a material sense. So when they look at it in the material way, their calculations and their equations fit. Just like a mathematical equation, A plus B is equal to.
And in this case, we're not even claiming some moral victory alone.
No.
Even in according to their own standards, their own material, profane, apparent standards, Iran has had gains and it has had the upper hand, or victory for that matter.
Okay, so this massive defeat happens for the American forces on that night in Isfahan. Just and during that time, after that, straight away, the tone starts to change. You find panic. You find messages from the authorities in the US that are really showing panic and confusion, and we don't know what to do. And then Wednesday night comes, but there's this threat of the president to annihilate a whole. The tone was at the beginning was to free the Iranian people. We love the Iranian people. We're going to free them. Now it's about destroying the entire civilization.
Yes.
So where were you on Wednesday night? What were you doing? Were you panicking? Did you sleep?
Frankly, I slept very peacefully because I knew that there's nothing going to happen. In fact, we are just next to one of the big bridges.
Really?
I live next to one very big bridge. In fact, between two bridges.
Yes, correct.
So, like, if anything would happen,
Yeah, you're in the middle of two bridges, correct.
But I slept like a baby, basically. I don't know if babies sleep well, but I slept properly that night. And in the morning, I woke up and everything was normal.
Yeah. We woke up to a ceasefire, right? Where were you on that night?
I was up. I'm always up, but I'm always up. So,
Okay.
yeah, I was checking the news, and it was expected, to be honest. We all knew that something's going to materialize. Trump, even if I believe firmly that even if this ceasefire had not been agreed to, Trump would have chickened out. But still, I think the Islamic Republic believed that it had the upper hand, it had reached militarily the position where now it could consolidate its gains on the negotiating table as well. So therefore they agreed to a ceasefire, especially after the desperation. They had been sending overtures for 30 days behind the scenes. They had been asking for a ceasefire, 45 days ceasefire. Iran was rebuking all of that.
So I think that's a very good point. So if I can ask like this, and you can repeat the point, who asked for a ceasefire?
Of course the US.
I think that's a big point.
Of
I think
course,
we don't
of course.
realize that, when let's say I want to get something from you, I want to take your laptop.
And not once.
Not once, yeah. But let's say I'm fighting with you and I want to, because of your laptop, and I beat you up, and then I ask for a ceasefire. What does that say?
Of course, this means you're in a weaker position.
Exactly, right? Because when I want your laptop and I fight with you, and then I'm the one who didn't get the laptop, and now I'm asking you, okay, let's stop fighting. See, if Iran today was asking for a ceasefire, but okay, in a position of weakness, it was attacked, and now it's saying, well, please, I'm begging, can you stop attacking me? But this is not the case, right?
No, of course. It was the US repeatedly for all this throughout at least the 30 days. After the first 10 days, the US kept asking for a ceasefire because they realized that they had miscalculated.
Yeah.
They didn't have a plan in place. And there was so much confusion. They were repeatedly retracting their retracing their steps and retracting their statements.
In fact, before we even talk about ceasefire, we need to talk about who was talking about negotiations.
Yeah.
Search up the word negotiations, I challenge. Find how many times any Iranian official spoke about negotiations, and you'll find they are the ones who was always bringing up the issue of negotiations, whether rightly or basically he was lying, saying that, oh, I negotiated with one of the officials or some of the officials in Iran.
This is a way to say, we want to do it, can you please come?
Can you please come? While all our officials were like, I didn't hear of any negotiation.
And we're not even interested in this.
We're not even interested in it.
Question is, why are they asking for a ceasefire? Why is the US today asking for a ceasefire and got it?
So it comes back to the Tabas issue that you saw, the god of Tabas. The god of Tabas is also the god of the outskirts of Isfahan, basically. Right. And what happened is that after they faced that defeat, whereby, it was not a small thing, they came in, according to the reports that we have, and they obliterated not Iranian planes, their own planes, because they were worried that nothing should be remaining there. They literally burnt them down to ashes. That's such a, if you look at it in terms of divine terms, the enemy destroys himself, right? That verse of the Quran that says, "A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, yukhribuna buyutahum bi aydihim wa aydil mu'minin." They will destroy their houses themselves with their own hands. So they are destroying their own planes themselves. Why? Because they didn't want it to happen. And now when that happened, that was a big strategic defeat for them. So immediately they realized that, look, now we need to have a ceasefire. These are the events that happened actually that led to the idea of a ceasefire. And because according to them, they made up this idea that there was a regime change. We'll speak about it, I guess.
Yes.
They said regime change and whatever. Therefore, we can easily claim a ceasefire. But Iran was like, no ceasefire. In fact, this asking for ceasefire happened 10 days into the war. What we get from the Iranian officials is day and night. In fact, one of the officials was saying we were getting messages 3 times a day, like breakfast, lunch, and dinner. It was like a ceasefire.
So it's clear from the messages that the US has been begging for this, right?
Yes.
But let's come back. Doesn't US have the upper hand in this? Military-wise, strategically-wise, why are we saying that the US is weakened in this?
Wars, the outcomes of wars, they're not measured in terms of casualties and the number of what military muscle you have, or the number of strikes that you conduct. It is measured in terms of objectives and the goals that you have, and who's meeting those goals. See, if it were only the number of casualties, Germany would be triumphant in the Second World War.
Yeah.
The Red Army of Soviet Union lost 25 million people.
Yeah.
Still, today we say the Red Army won the war against Germany. So this is not a measure of success in wars.
Yeah.
So you have to look at many variables. And when you factor in all those variables, political, economic, social, even psychological and moral, you see that the US has lost on all accounts. Even the military one, in which they claimed, or political one, where they claimed to have the upper hand, even they have failed in that. Iran today controls what they did not control 40 days ago. 20% of world's oil. They've basically gifted Iran. See, we don't necessarily think in these terms. For us, victory has a better and bigger meaning. We'll come to that later on. But they only think in these terms. So even according to their own measure, they've given 20% of Iran of the world oil to Iran, and Iran now controls it, tolls it, and this was open previously. So of course, they've lost.
handed it to Iran, basically.
And because they think in these terms, and they accepted defeat, that now they cannot open the Strait of Hormuz anymore, no matter what they do. Iran has the upper hand. Iran will continue to control it. They had to come to the negotiating table.
One of the things that I would like to add on this is that, look, one of the important parts of victory in a war, or that determines how strong you are, or if you have an upper hand, is when you discuss on who has the proactive edge. Who is reacting and who is proactive. If you look at this, then Iran is very proactive.
Who's managing the game, basically? Who's putting the rules of the game? It's interesting over here.
Yes.
If you say who's putting out the rules of the game, who put the conditions for the ceasefire?
Exactly.
Iran did, right? The 10 points was from Iran.
They did. They were quite keen about it, but they failed. And eventually they had to come to terms of the fact that if there has to be talks, that will be on the Iran standpoint.
So they didn't give us the 15 points that they had bought. They've set it for, but the 15 points were discarded.
Exactly. So for a few days they said, okay, 15 points we're sending. Iran said no. Until Iran said, we've got 10 points to answer, and then the ceasefire was agreed upon, that we were going to stop the war and then discuss on these 10 points of Iran.
The 10 points will be the basis.
Exactly. We showed that who rules the game over here. So your point of who's active and who's reactive over here, Iran is active. Iran is kind of managing the war and say, look, it's on our terms now, not on your terms.
If you're rejecting a ceasefire 3 times a day for 30 days, that's 90 rejections of a ceasefire. And then on your terms, you're accepting a ceasefire, which is, by the way, not a peace treaty. Iran cannot and will not make peace with the Zionist regime and its chief supporter.
So I'll come to that. It's a very important point. How we can define the ceasefire. But coming back to the objectives of the war as well, because I think we said it in the last podcast as well, which really I would encourage everyone to watch, about what it means to be victorious. But here, it's good to come back to it because it's so relevant today. That look, if we want to say that US was winning, then we would go back to the objective that they had, right? So they wanted regime change, which didn't happen. They wanted the uranium program or the uranium things to get in their hands. They haven't got it. They wanted missile capacity to be reduced. It hasn't. They've been firing every night. They wanted to change the map of Iran, kind of separate or divide Iran into small regions. That didn't happen. They wanted to destroy the resistance. It got even stronger. So you find that I always like to bring it back to school bullying, right? When you have a bully at school, right, and you say, look, I'm gonna beat you up because I want 5 things of yours, right? And then after like 10 minutes, when you look at the scene and the one who was bullying didn't get any of those 10 things, and you say, okay, let's stop the war now. And why did you stop the war? If you wanted it, if you really won, you would have got those 10 things, but you didn't, and you asked for a ceasefire. It means like there's something wrong with you. You're now on a weakened position. You're now losing something.
And we're not inferring their objectives. They had clearly stated these officially, repeatedly. So there's not inference on our behalf. They repeatedly said this, and then they left all of it and came to terms with Iran's standpoint agenda.
It was the same in the 12-day war also.
Exactly.
The 12-day war also, they had set some objectives, they didn't achieve them. Now in this war also, they've not been able to achieve their objectives.
Okay, so let's go back. What does ceasefire mean? What does it mean? What does this term mean? And what is happening right now? Obviously, we can't say so much. We don't have but what's going to happen next? And things are very, very sensitive, and they're changing every minute. I need some of the production team over here was saying, what's the point of having a podcast that you're going to change your opinion? But we're not going to change our opinion because we're discussing the principles behind it and looking at it from a kind of bird's eye perspective. Whether the ceasefire carries on, doesn't carry on, irrespective of it, we can still appreciate what happened, at least in this few days. So what does it mean, ceasefire? What does negotiation mean? What does all these terms?
See, the war continues. Let's not misunderstand that. We have a war, and within war we have different battles.
Excellent.
You lose some, you win some. Alhamdulillah, we've been winning all the battles even this time.
Yeah.
So sometimes the metaphor is that you lose a battle to win the war, but this time you're winning the battles and winning the war.
Yeah.
So
And so you have to look at ceasefire within that.
yeah, within that, ceasefire is just one of the tactics that you use to get to your goals.
Yeah.
See, why do I resort to violence? Why do I resort to firepower? Because it seems that without using that, I can't get to my goals.
Yeah.
So now if Iran has reached that position, where it thinks that the goals of the war that was imposed upon Iran, but still it had objectives and goals that it wanted to, and that's why it was repeatedly rebuking the ceasefire initiatives. So now it thinks it is in a position where it can still achieve all those goals, all those objectives, without resorting to fire.
Yeah.
So now, if Iran can get to all its goals and objectives on a table, it will do it. If it can't, it'll resort back to the battlefield.
So I think that's a very important point. You know why? Because emotions are very high right now, right? I mean, people, I don't know about you, but when I woke up that morning, so I slept as well, by the way. With Hassan brothers, we went to play football on that Wednesday night. We came home, I was awake for a while, I was doing some work, some tabligh work, and then I went to sleep as well. I wake up in the morning and there's ceasefire. Now, like everybody else, the emotion was very, very high. Why ceasefire? We want to carry on the fight. We were strong, right? Why not just carry on this? And I think the point that you mentioned is very important, that we have to look at it from a bigger perspective, right? The victory is there, definitely. We're winning it. But it takes different shapes. And we're not saying that we can't be counted as warmongers. Like we're just only after fire, only after army. I'll just share this verse. It's a very important verse. So this is Surah Anfal, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, وَأَعِدُّ لَهُمْ مَسَّتَعْتُم مِّن قُوَّةٍ, like prepare your strength against them, and then do it in a way that you scare them, right? تُرْهِبُونَ بِهِ عَدُوَ اللَّهِ, that you install in them, that you show so much power, right, that they become the adu of Allah, the enemy of Allah becomes scared. Okay, this is important, and this is what you see in the last 30 days and last 40 days. There's been a fear in the enemy, and you can see this in the tweets and the way they're so confused. They don't know what to do. So they are very, very scared. The fact that all of the countries in the world, right, Spain, Italy, Germany, England, everyone's like, no, we're not getting involved. Sorry. You keep on saying we want the Strait of Hormuz open. We can open it whenever we want. It's still not open, right? You can see that they're scared of it, right? But then Allah carries on the next verse. It's وَإِن جَنَحُوا لِلسَّلْمِ فَاجْنَحْ لَهَا. If they come, the enemy comes to you and says, look, we want to do a ceasefire. We want to stop the war. Then Allah says, فَاجْنَحْ لَهَا. Then definitely you also go towards it. If they say, look, we're not going to shoot at you anymore. We're happy to seize the fire, Atash Bas. Then we have no right to carry on.
The verse goes on, وَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ. So believe in Allah, don't trust
them. Definitely.
We know they're deceptive, we know they are liars,
Ahsan.
We know they can strike back during the ceasefire, they can violate it, but right now we think that we are in a position where we can bargain, get a good bargain on the table. Exactly. We'll do it. If it doesn't happen, we'll go back and bloody their nose.
Yes,
exactly.
But Sheikh, I agree with that when they come towards us and they appreciate the fact that we are powerful, and therefore they take a back step, basically. Yeah. So if they take a back step, we take a back step also. We step back also. They
step back isn't like accept the ceasefire. We're not going to punch you. Okay, fine. I won't punch you back.
I won't punch you back. But also there's another verse that also deals with this same issue in the sense that I would also look at it in this way, that it is a kind of a war technique, whereby Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Holy Quran says, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم ومن يولهم. It says that يا أيها الذين آمنوا إذا لقيتم الذين كفروا زحفا فلا تولوهم الأدبار. When you meet the enemy, when you're in a war, in a fighting position, زحفا, that means you are going ahead in a line fighting them, they are also coming and fighting you. When you meet them like that, and sometimes you get scared, like literally, just imagine, like we've never faced it. Like you see the enemy in front of you with tanks and those F-15s and whatever, all those different types of Fs that
you can't deny the technology, right?
Yeah, the technology, you might get scared, yeah. But of course, I'm talking about myself, we might, I'm saying. Inshallah, we don't be like that. Then he says, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَلَا تُوَلُّوهُمُ الْأَدْبَارِ. Do not turn back. Now, someone might take it literally, that I do not turn back. That means if I turn back, maybe if I have a war tactic, or I want to use a technique in war front, that means I just have to face frontwards. No, Allah then clarifies. He says, وَمَنْ يُوَلِّهِمْ يَوْمَئِذٍ دُبُرَهُ. In that day, let's say if someone turns back, إِلَّا مُتَحَرِّفًا لِقِتَالٍ, as a war technique, مُتَحَرِّفًا لِقِتَالٍ, he's trying to find innovative ways to come and hit back. أو متحيزا إلى فئة, or maybe he wants to join another group, so they're turning back to join another group and then come back and continue fighting. That is allowed. In fact, sometimes it's a war technique. So here it also could mean like this, that
Yeah.
you know, we are doing it's a ceasefire, that in the sense that we are turning back slightly.
Exactly.
Not that we don't want to fight, we want to just you know, let things settle, because you know, sometimes when the clouds are all, you know, there's so much smoke everywhere, you need to calm down a bit, let the smoke settle a bit, so that we see exactly what's happening.
So basically, wars are not fought on whims and wishes, unless your name is Donald Trump. But yeah, when you look, you're in a war, you have a strategic level, you have a tactical level, you have your operations, you continuously, you recalibrate your options, and you have to take a stock of your situation.
Yeah.
You have to look at the ground. All these different variables together determine the course that you're going to take. And then you see which operations, which tactics get you to your goals.
Okay,
it's not about fighting all the time.
What about the advantage that the enemy has as well? What if this was their technique? Right, we're talking about this might be a strategy that we're adopting. But what if it's a strategy that they're adopting? They're using a ceasefire, for example, to replenish themselves, right? Because they also need ammunition. What about their replenishing? What about their reorganizing themselves? Isn't that like giving them an opportunity? When we had the upper hand, we're giving them an opportunity for them to reorganize themselves, to replenish themselves, and attack us even stronger than this.
Of course, it's possible. See, of course, they will employ tactics as well. But on this issue of replenishing the stocks, that is not possible. Had Iran agreed to this 45-day ceasefire, you would have said it, even though 45 days isn't much
2 weeks
either.
is not much, right?
But only 2 weeks. So Iran, it's evident that Iran has agreed to a 14-day ceasefire based on its own 10-point agreements, and no one can replenish their interceptor stocks or their missile stocks in 2 weeks alone. Yeah. And even if someone does that, Iran's rate of production is much better than their rate of production. It's more bureaucratic.
Yeah.
So no, it's not really. It's not really possible.
Also, I like to say it this way as well. Like, your point is definitely very valid. But like, if I've thought about it, I'm sure the people up there, the military commanders have thought about it. Like, it's kind of obvious, right? I think this point is important to mention as well. There's a level of trust that we need to also have, right?
Yes.
Sometimes our emotions are so high that why ceasefire? We could have fired, and I come up with like 15 points of why this was wrong. But then, like, I'm sure they've thought about it as well. Like, our military, like, know better than the Iranian military know better than this, right? The commanders know better than and I want to come to this as well. The Security Council's message is very powerful, and it shows that this thing wasn't done by a couple of military people just on a lower level. This went all the way high up, and it was agreed. So can we say we trust them, right?
You mean the Iranian Security
Definitely,
Council? Yeah, definitely, yes.
There's a level of trust that we need to have on those commanders, on the higher levels, right?
Because they have information we don't. We have very limited information. We are usually the laymen, they are lay people. They are emotional, and they have limited information. So most people, when they are trying to analyze the situation, they're doing it in an emotional manner based on very limited information. But these people, they know the situation of the country well, they know the military situation well, they're in contact with the commanders, military commanders on ground, so they know better. And some of these military commanders, they're a part of the Security Council as well. Yeah. So they know everything of the situation, they can take a better stock of the situation, and the decision that they make is obviously very well informed compared to ours.
So, go on.
Yeah, so adding to that, I feel that in fact, it is a norm that every, you can say, military campaign has to have a end of war strategy. So it's not like they are going to enter the war without strategy, like some people do, as you know them.
Even if someone's surrendering, they have to come to the table and sign this terms of surrender.
Terms of surrender.
So battles end on tables.
So it seems like, as Sheikh Miqdad mentioned, that the Security Council, the Iranian Security Council, is definitely aware of this, and definitely before even the war or during the war, they must have sat down and made some terms on how the war would end. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense. They don't want to indefinitely fight. So if the enemy is ready to accept those terms and giving you an upper hand, then why not? Isn't it? And if you look at the terms, man, the terms are strong.
Very. So we'll come back to the terms. I want to go back to this Security Council's message. I don't think we've seen so many of these messages come out, right? The Security Council doesn't give message.
Not many, yeah.
At least from the beginning of the war, this is probably the first or second time we've seen such such a message. So it shows the importance of this. Obviously, the Security Council is at the highest level.
Yeah.
And look at the words it's saying. Like, for example, it's saying at one point, we'll bring the whole text later if need be, but so likewise, Iran has thus far rejected several ultimatums presented by the President of America and continues to emphasize that it attaches no importance whatsoever to any kind of ultimatum from the enemy.
Excellent.
But now we give glad tidings to the great nation of Iran that nearly all the objectives of the war have been realized, and your brave sons have driven the enemy into a historic helplessness and a lasting defeat. And then it says, in this regard, I'm skipping a few lines, in accordance with the directive of the Supreme Leader, right, and the approval of the Supreme National Council, it's considered that we have an upper hand and the inability of the enemy to implement its threat despite all its claims, and then therefore it's decided that it's going to go with.
You see, what I see in this message? I see the respect that the Security Council is showing to the people of Iran as well. It's a 2-page explanation.
Yeah.
See, it's not a directive. Iran is no dictatorship.
Yeah.
The Security Council,
It's
in
explained.
times of war,
Yeah.
it's the President, the Chief Justice, military commanders, and representatives by the Supreme Leader, all of them sit together, and they draft this, and then they are explaining to the honorable people of Iran, see, this is not an arbitrary decision. It's not something that we're forced to do. We have met our objectives. The Supreme Leader has allowed this ceasefire, and the fact that we are going to so many details and discussing everything shows the respect and the value that the people of Iran have for the government, the leader here.
Adding to that, also, it's because look at the people have been for 14 nights outside.
It's remarkable.
Yeah.
It's remarkable.
It's something that we can say it and say it again. I don't think it'll be enough to even that Wednesday night.
I was sick. Honestly, I was very sick last night.
Yeah.
And it was a labor for me to drag myself to a mokib, one of these gatherings.
Yeah.
But once I was there, for the next few hours, I didn't remember I was there.
Yeah.
Honestly.
It's
And I felt
a
better
power.
coming home.
In fact, when they say they'll burn the bridges,
Yeah.
do you see the images?
People went on the bridges.
People said we'll stand on the bridges, man.
The mokib this gathering that I am talking about, it is under a bridge. It starts it's spread out, but it begins. The mokibs are under the bridge.
Now, this is a good idea. I think next time we can take a tent and just tent camp on a
But
bridge.
it shows the what kind of people we have, and it shows that what kind of commanders these people have as well, right? That they, I was thinking as well, like, when I talk about trusting the commanders, trusting the people at the top, these people, as the Farsis say, like John Dadan, right? They have given their lives for this. I mean, compare that to Pete, for example, sitting and giving press conferences there. He has no clue. He's not been on the battlefield. These guys, these big commanders, they're on the battlefield. Their heads are on the line, right? So many of them have been killed. They're now the second, third on the line. But they're there in the war front, and so they're involved, and they know what's happening, right? And they're so involved. They're ready to give their lives. And so when this ceasefire happens, it is from a point of strength. It's a point of force. But at the same time, do we trust the enemy?
Of course not.
Of course not. Do we remove our hands from the gun? Definitely not, right? Like Iran is still very much 100%, probably even more precautious and more ready to fire than before, right? Because ceasefire doesn't mean, okay, now Iran and America are going to become best friends and there's going to be flowers and...
No, in
It's a
fact,
joke,
from
right?
the experience that Iran has had till now, it's when the ceasefires happen is when they create more damage.
Exactly.
Do you remember when they were having those talks? That's when the first talks. That's when they hit they killed some people.
Yeah.
After that, in the second muzakere, the second talks, that's when they even killed Rahbar Shahid. So it's always when they talk of ceasefire is when we get a bit more stressed out. So yes, they call for a ceasefire, but we are also going to be very extra
But
precautious.
they're not only liars, and they're not only war criminals, and they go against international norms and values and laws. They're also very unchivalrous and dishonorable, honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, if you have a sense of honor, then you respect your word. When you come to a table, you talk.
Yeah.
You don't call someone to come on the table to kill them.
kill them.
This is what they do. This is very unchivalrous.
You see,
So no matter how many movies you make
Yeah.
about being honorable and
Yeah.
honoring at least the law or the code of war, repeatedly they've shown how dishonorable
And everybody knows that.
unchivalrous they
And
are.
everybody knows how deceptive and liars they are. Iran definitely knows that. So they're not going to trust them definitely. But it's not because of ceasefire that's why we're going to kind of let it go.
And so you can't expect honor. You've seen the videos of, unfortunately I'm using this word, from the Epstein files. You've seen that video where Trump is walking towards these three girls. There were three girls standing there and they were like holding each other's hands. You saw that video?
No.
It's three young girls. They were literally scared, so much scared, they were like literally shivering, and Trump is like pointing at them like this.
Right.
What can you expect from a person like that?
Right.
A
But now
person, a stooped low, you can say, individual like them. I don't want to use words because I want to dirty my mouth. But what do you expect from such people?
You're right. I was wrong to bring up human honor. I mean, it doesn't apply here.
Yeah, it's really like. But the thing is, my point is this: that we have to appreciate that because it's very emotional, right, for everyone. We have to appreciate that everybody knows this, and I'm 100% sure and convinced that those who have accepted the ceasefire on the Iranian side, they also know this, right? They're 100%
Much
aware
better than
that
us.
they're much better than us, right? That the enemy is like this. It's a very deceitful, lying enemy, and that they will go against it. And these guys are ready for it, right? And this is based on the Quranic teachings as well. That when you have the enemy in front of you, you never lower your arms, right? Even though you're going to do silm with them, you're going to be trust in Allah. You don't trust in them. There's not going to be flour. Basically, this is not the end of the war.
No, no.
Right?
It's a part of the war.
It's part of the war. We're still like somebody was saying. This is not day 2 of the ceasefire. This is day 41 of the war. Day 42 of the war.
Yeah. Awesome.
Coming back to the 10 points, can we go quickly through the 10 points and just see like how Iran is coming on a note of power when it brings this 10 points as opposed to accepting the 15 points of Trump?
See, in negotiations, whenever you put up points for demands in a negotiation, of course, you don't necessarily want all of them at all times.
Yeah.
So you make compromises, the other side makes
That's what
compromises.
negotiation is, right?
Oh, that's what it is. But when we look at the 10 points that Iran has given, to be honest, if Iran gets 2 out of these, if Iran doesn't get any of these, Iran is still victorious.
Yeah.
But if Iran gets 2 or 3 of these, that would be a huge victory.
It's victorious.
This begins.
It's victorious because it is the one that brought the thing that we're negotiating on my terms, right?
Yeah.
We're negotiating with, I make the rules of negotiation, as opposed to any of the previous time. I don't think we've ever seen this, where the paper that has been negotiated and discussed and the agenda of the meeting is governed by Iran this time.
Exactly. See,
But what do you
many
say
of-
about that? The fact that some lady said that they threw it in the bin. How do you explain that?
well, see, this stuff for domestic consumption, because Trump was shamed a lot. I mean, especially Democrats, the social media users, everyone, they shamed him a lot.
Do you see
they have to
the taco?
thing. they had to say face safe as well. So that's for domestic consumption, trying to face some. See, I think if you want to really gauge how strong a position Iran is in, for someone who has the temper of a pampered, spoiled, psychotic 8-year-old like Donald Trump, even after being shamed so much, and someone who's so self-indulgent, he has not had the courage to break the ceasefire. And he's even restrained the Zionist regime from attacking Lebanon after
Iran.
the massacre yesterday.
Yeah, we'll talk about Lebanon in a second.
So still he's not been able to do it. Because if after so much being shamed so much, because he really cares about himself and his image.
The thing is, Iran hasn't opened the Strait of Hormuz yet.
No.
Right?
Strait of Hormuz is closed, and he has put up this as one of the demands for negotiations. Yesterday, supposedly day 1 of ceasefire, less ships crossed the Strait of Hormuz than any other day during April. And we are today in the 9th day of April. The first 7 days, there were more ships passing because Iran was allowing them. On the 8th day, only 4 ships passed.
So it closed it basically.
Yeah,
so saying it's coming on from power of strength basically, and definitely Trump has been shamed. So I want to say like this, John. So most of us saying because it's true that they have been saying that no, it's going to be on our terms, etc. The 15 points that America brought, but they're naturally going to say that, right? Because a bully is not going to say, I admit that I was wrong. He's not going to say that. He's already been shamed so much. It's interesting. I was going through many of the Democrats and even Republicans and professors at university, American people, right? Even The Guardian had a massive article about how this is, The Guardian called it instant gratification for Trump, but knowing that this is not going to go anywhere towards victory. On the contrary, it's a massive defeat for the US, and they've acknowledged it. They themselves, their own people, Americans, whether it's politicians, whether it's professors at university, military advisors, they've all said that we don't know what's happening over here. This guy's lost it. This is a massive defeat by going through this to the ceasefire. So that's definitely that.
At a political level, in terms of its alliances with Europe, in terms of economy, in terms of losing value and image in the world, and ultimately China coming to broker a ceasefire between the United States and Iran. And so you see a major shift of power to this side of the world. It's all because of Iran. And Iran has been paying the cost, and it's because of Iran's courage and strength that this happened, but it's a major shift of power. And people are considering this, and probably will know about him. Robert Pape, he's a very famous professor. He was at our department in the university. And he is an advisor at Pentagon. He was Obama's advisor. He was saying that this is the beginning of beginning of Iran's rise as the fourth great power of the world, and the decline of the United States as the sole superpower.
Yeah. One thing that I would like to add to this also, see, let us look at it in terms of, let's look at it as a spectator from outside. See, there was a war happening whereby the Strait of Hormuz was not part of the equation completely. Who brought the Strait of Hormuz into the equation?
Exactly.
Iran brought it.
Yeah.
So we realize with this, the fact that Iran was able to bring the Strait of Hormuz into the equation and forced the enemy to come to terms with it, whatever those terms are, whatever those terms are, means that Iran is powerful now.
In strength.
This alone,
and he still controls it. I just can't mean that still controls it.
This alone is sufficient. That's what I said. Even if
Yeah.
Iran does not get anything else out of the 10 points, this alone is a sufficient victory. You control 20% of world's oil, and you're tolling it. You're not only controlling it, you're tolling, putting a toll on it. That's victory.
It's very interesting as well, and when you talk about nobility and stuff, you find that, and showing how much US begged for this ceasefire to happen. You know, he even reposted Arakchi's message, right? Now, at one point he was accusing the country over here of slandering and insulting, and then now to post Arakchi's message is a sign of respect. I acknowledge and I understand that you are there. Like, it's like saying to his own people, like, I have accepted that they have agreed to the ceasefire. Like, I was begging it. Look, now they've accepted the ceasefire. It's a very embarrassing thing to do for a person who's bullying, to then actually acknowledge the presence and acknowledge the strength. I'm even going to quote it for my own people, what they have been saying. It's like,
even for bullies, even when he was insulting and threatening, even that was, if you really understand it, it was basically a request for a ceasefire. Because bullies, they project power. They don't have.
They don't have power.
They don't have power.
Let's just revisit something very interesting. You remember when? You remember that video where Pakistan the president and some other big politicians were there, and Trump was treating them like school children. You saw that video? Like, he was calling them, "Hey, you come here, and let's speak about it." And he was like making fun of them, literally. Now,
the British Prime
imagine.
How he was like.
So he was treating them literally like schoolboys, like his small children. Now, these same small children of his are telling him no, number one. Number two, he was forced to let Pakistan broker the deal. Can you believe it? Pakistan, for him, we respect the country of Pakistan. Don't take us wrongly, we respect the country of Pakistan. But the way he was dealing with it, now they're allowing, for example, the one he was treating like a schoolboy to come and dictate terms for him. That means now Pakistan clearly said that Baba, you clearly mentioned that Lebanon is part of the ceasefire. And now, and this was officially said, in the tweet that the president, the honorable president of Pakistan gave, and even after that, when the foreign minister came and gave an open speech, interview, where he clearly clarified that Lebanon is part of it.
Even today, the Pakistani ambassador to the US, he spoke to US media and he clarified it, that Lebanon was indeed a part of the...
Okay, let's talk about Lebanon then. Did Iran abandon Lebanon, South Lebanon?
Of course not. I mean, this is ridiculous to say. See, we look at the whole resistance, and we see it's a part. It's one. Different organs of a single system.
So you can't even think about it like that. It's like whoever even thought about it.
Look at the cost Iran has paid. I mean, we've paid in Rahab's blood, the holiest, purest blood. So has Iran not paid the cost? But you have tactics at times. People sometimes, as I said, impulsively or decide emotionally. That's not how it is. Wars are not fought on whims.
Yeah.
And you have to look at the whole picture. You have to change tactics at times. Eventually, what matters is who achieves their goals.
Yeah.
We want the Islamic system to thrive, the resistance to be strong, and we'll see whatever methods or means get us to that point.
Yeah.
See, according to me, the resistance, me when I say, I mean the analysis that I've read. So the resistance movement, it's the different faculties or different appendages, as you say, they cover for one another. So, for example, all this time, Iran has been covering for the resistance movement. It gave the greatest of shuhada, Shaheed Qasim Soleimani, on the path of resistance. Where was Qasim Soleimani? He helped, fight ISIS. Fight ISIS in different parts of the world. And this was a section of Iran helping out the Mahwar-e-Muqawamat, as we call the resistance axis. Not only that, the different shuhada that they gave on all these processes, so many shuhada. If you look at, for example, how Shaheed Mohsin Hujaji was martyred, and
So
all the other martyrs.
it's absurd to say that, like it's all, as you mentioned, it's one body. But you see,
we're not saying this in a nonchalant way, dispassionate about it.
Yeah.
No. We are all shattered, honestly. My heart is bleeding for what happened in Lebanon yesterday.
Exactly.
Especially
300 people martyred.
Civilians as well.
Exactly.
And you know, one thing that hurts a lot is that the enemy, when it can't defeat the resistance on the battlefield, right? It attacks the
That's
civilians.
a very important
And
point.
I think that's an important point because you see what happens is that, and then what we do, because of the emotions, we blame, for example, the resistance because of you. It's like saying, for example, because you were so strong on the battlefield, right? Then we got beaten up by civilians. We blame the aggressors, right? The aggressors had a defeat in the battlefield, right? They could not, in South Lebanon, they can't do anything. They were ambushed, they were destroyed, and they turned to kill civilians in order to put pressure on the resistance.
Also, we should not play in their hands. See, we can see the Zionist regime attacking civilians, also throwing a fit, being upset about the ceasefire, because they were not as affected by Strait of Hormuz, and they thought that they could still continue, but the US was really worried about it.
Yeah.
So, and secondly, they actually wanted to create a rift among the resistance factions and the people, the support base.
Yeah.
So we should not play in their hands.
So
The people who have the reins
Yeah.
of this resistance know better than us.
Yeah.
We should place trust in them, and we believe in them, especially when it comes from the highest authority of the supreme leader. So we believe in them.
Adding to that also, the fact that we might be expecting a certain kind of response based on our own, you can say, framework of thinking. That look, they hit 300 people, they killed civilians, they did this. We also need to throw a barrage of missiles and hit. That's how we would.
But that's not how it works, right?
That's not how it works. Because the actual revenge, even remember when Shaheed Qasim Soleimani was martyred, at that time, Rahbar-e-Shaheed came and said that the true revenge will be cutting the hands of the oppressive American regime from this country.
In the region.
From the
in
region.
the region.
Yeah.
That will be the true revenge.
Yeah.
The true revenge doesn't come by smacking
And someone's
hitting.
already talking about it.
And it's not going to happen in a day.
People
right?
are started talking about it.
Yeah.
That eventually, after what happened in the region,
Yeah.
the US, allies in the region, and the US itself will have to think about
put it this way,
reducing forces here.
We can see that there's a crack from within, right? And it's going to disappear at one point. There's definitely that. The whole thing will be
It's a war of
annihilated.
attrition, basically.
But it's not going to happen in a day or two. It's not going to happen in 40 days. These things take a while. Sometimes we become so emotional about these things. Like, how can we just carry on the war and like destroy everything? Right? It doesn't happen like that.
What's important, winning a war or just feeling about throwing 4 punches?
No, it's just winning the war, right?
Winning the war is
the ultimate goal that we have, and the victory of
and that comes at a cost. That comes with a cost. Sometimes you pay a lot of cost.
Yeah.
See what happened to resistance in the last 6 or 7 months.
Yeah.
Everyone said, oh, the resistance in Lebanon, I mean, it's decimated, it's gone, everything.
Yeah.
And then you see them fighting, destroying.
The way they fight.
The way they fought.
Yeah.
And the missiles were hitting. That was surprising.
And not in just one or two, in numbers, in strength. This is not from us as well, right? The Zionists themselves, their own journalists, their own people are saying this. We didn't expect this. They actually blaming the government for lying to them. That's saying that the resistance was done.
Did you see the mayor crying and shouting and screaming?
Say we need help over here.
This was surprising.
So definitely, South Lebanon hasn't been abandoned. Definitely, it's absurd to even think like that.
Did you see Kali Baf and all the major generals? They said Lebanon is part of us. We will not leave them. They have not been.
And they've counted this as a break in the ceasefire. They've said, look, you've broken the ceasefire already.
Yes.
So we're already counting. Iran is already counting the amount of times that the US has broken the ceasefire. And this is one of them. And so it's a very fragile ceasefire for now.
Yeah.
Again, as you said, ceasefire is not the end of the war. The war carries on. It's a new chapter. Chapters changed. The adventure carries on. The total victory will happen, inshallah, at the end. I want to say, and end with this, what's happening from now on? I'm obviously not going to say we can predict it, but where do you see this going?
So of course, as I said, Iran has the upper hand, of course. I mean, it's not just me, myself. You look at the Western academics and media and the politicians, you know that the US indeed has lost this round of the battle. In terms of the war,
It's losing.
So now Iran wants to consolidate its gains. It'll see whether or not it can consolidate the gains on the battlefield, on the table, on the negotiation table. If it can do that, the gains will translate into a consolidated victory on the negotiation table. If that does not happen, because we know that they're deceptive, they'll try to strike when you're least expecting it. So if that happens, Iran will go back to the battlefield. But right now, even if the status quo prevails, Iran is victorious, but we're still wary, and it's possible that there could be more breaches of the ceasefire and testing Iran more to see if it will get back into a war. Because, see, Iran, if it has achieved the goals now without resorting to violence or a fight, so for it to go back to a fight, it's wasting of resources because you've achieved your goals.
And also the image it portrays as well, it needs to be seen, and it is like this as well, not an aggressor, right? It fights when it needs to fight, and it withholds when it needs to withhold, right? As long as it is victorious in achieving its goals and it's standing on its strength, then if, for example, the aggressor today says, okay, I'm going back to my country, I don't have to do anything, because America has been on the other side of the
Even in terms of the Zionist regime, when we say that we want the destruction of the Zionist regime and that. You're not talking about the people over there, of course. State is a bureaucratic structure. The dismantling of the state, it happens all the time. What we believe in is that the locals, the Islamic Republic, the locals, the indigenous people, even if they're Jews, should have a right in a new Palestinian state that is not based on apartheid.
They can decide themselves.
But the settlers need to leave. So we believe in a one-state solution in which the locals have a right to live as equals.
And I think
but the settlers need to leave.
That's been the narrative all the time.
That's
right?
That's what Rabbi used to say.
The referendum that we're saying, nobody wants to impose we're not the aggressor, Iran is not the aggressor, Iran doesn't want to impose its law, so look, have a referendum there. So
you don't want to kill all the people over there.
No, definitely.
You just want dismantling of the apartheid structure over there.
Definitely. So the position from an Islamic perspective, from a noble perspective, you can even say, is that, look, when the aggressor comes and attacks, you defend on strength. When it says, I don't want to attack anymore, you don't need to attack, you're not an aggressor. You stand strong. As long as you are strong, as the Quran mentions, and you have the upper hand.
And you've achieved your goals.
And you've achieved your goal, you stand strong without necessary to hold.
There's no need to go on.
Exactly.
Because now you already have an upper hand.
Definitely.
Already the enemy is retreating. Now what is the reason why?
And if they break it, then...
if they break it, we come back.
Exactly. And we have the upper hand for it as well.
Yes.
So now with this ceasefire, do the people stop coming at night?
I don't think so.
Of course not.
Of course not.
Of course not.
We were out yesterday.
We're out yesterday.
We're already planning.
We're already planning. So tonight is going to be the 40th of Rahbar, Shahada. And so there's a lot of programs out in the Haram and in different mosques, as well as the Tajammu, and the night carries on. In fact, many of the scholars have said, from Ayat al-Tahriri and the great scholars, as well as the people who are involved in different organizations, they've said that the people have to be still present. And I find that beautiful. It's the involvement of everyone in this, that look, the presence of people is as important as whatever happens in the skies or military-wise.
You know, what you're saying is interesting, because Rahbar Shaheed, before martyrdom, just a few lectures, like one, I think the last or the previous one before that, he had mentioned, if the enemy tries to create a rift between you or to attack you, the people will Allah will send forth the people of Iran. Mab'us, he said, Mardumro mab'us, mab'us, and he will send them forth. He'll awaken them. And this is exactly nowhere in the history of Iran, even those people who are there during the early stages of revolution, they say, we have not seen like this such fervor and energy. And you know, those people who...
Not just Iran, anywhere. The only other example that I have for it is Yemen, for example. You see that it's not the military or the government that's fighting. The whole nation is up there.
Adding to that,
standing up to the bullies.
You know, they talk about referendum. this is the referendum. Come to the streets of Tehran, come to the streets of Isfahan, and see that the referendum is there. The people are for the constitution, they are for the government, they are for the Islamic system.
And like I know people call, for example, is that do you guys have food and everything? You know how many mokebs there are out there? People distributing food. They're making sandwiches, they're making chai, they're making fruits and sweets and distributing throughout the streets in the night. It's something very special. So can I conclude? I think we've gone.
I just want to add one more thing. Sometimes I sit down, reflect, and I think that just experiencing this spectacle, this great, amazing, miraculous uprising of people, spending one day amongst these people is worth a lifetime.
Definitely. I agree. I would agree. Okay, so just to conclude, the enemy begged for a ceasefire, right? Definitely, it's established. They were begging because they were not winning at a military level. Iran has the upper hand. And so they begged for the ceasefire, and as they stopped fighting, Iran accepted this. But obviously on his condition, on Iran's condition, the 10 points. And this is not the stop of the war. This is not the end of the war. This is just a chapter of the war. And part of the victory is what that will occur. Negotiations will happen. Nothing has been agreed. It's just been a ceasefire. We'll stop and we'll start talking. And so the negotiations will happen, and we will see what would happen in those negotiations. But does that mean that Iran has stopped taking precaution? Definitely not. It's not a matter of flowers and shaking hands with big smiles and sharing chocolates. Definitely not. Iran is prepared, more alert than ever, because we know how deceitful, how lying, and how unchivalry this enemy is. And so definitely Iran is ready. They know it better than us. Our emotions, we try to express them, but we need to trust the people who are at the top. They've taken this decision as a noble and as a strategic decision to stop the war for now, to enter negotiations. And let's see what happens. Perhaps it will carry on and the victory will be seen on the negotiation table and it will be solidified of what Iran has gained. Perhaps it will not last and the battle will carry on until the next chapter. I hope this was useful. I find that we managed to cover quite a lot. Very important points were discussed. Inshallah, it's beneficial. And we hope that the audience, inshallah, enjoyed as well. And all of you as well, our respective viewers. Inshallah, if there's any questions, fill them in the comments. If there's any feedback, please feel free to share. And inshallah, until the next episode. Thank you to both of you again. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.